Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is. Welcome back. I hope your week is unfolding oh so beautifully well. We have an amazing stream planned ahead. Lots of business to attend to today. Quick preview, then we'll zoom in because we've got a bunch of documents to read through with some juicy nuggets inside. We're going to start with the judiciary double whammy. We had the House Judiciary GOP come out today and the Senate Judiciary GOP coming out, all obliterating Jack Smith and the corrupt Democrat lawfare scam, including two people who are very highly involved in it, Benny Thompson and Liz Cheney, on the corrupt, illegitimate, illegally constituted J6 Select Committee. We've got now documents saying that they sent materials over to Jack Smith. And this is so pernicious because the committee acted as basically like a big evidence vacuum, just sucking up evidence from all over the country, using their constitutional power to do it, violating people's rights because they're Congress and they can demand these things and the courts just let them do it. And then they packaged it all up and gave it over to Jack Smith. Jack Smith, who couldn't get the same evidence by himself. So this is a scandal of epic proportions. We also know that Biden's auto pen is invalid. And so the pardons for Liz Cheney and the rest of the committee, in our opinion, are invalid. And so they should be prosecuted for this corruption. But we'll come back and we'll get into that. We've got those documents, lots here. We've got little mind maps that are being created by the Senate Republicans. Not bad, not bad. And we'll go through more because Trump is saying Jack Smith should be put in prison. Fact check, that's a true statement. We'll go through the documents. Grassley was out today, got a little bit of a clip from him, and they were out for about 45, 50 minutes or so, and it was good. I would encourage you to listen to the whole thing if you're interested in this story, but we'll go and hit some of the highlights. We got Grassley up, and we've got Ted Cruz, who's calling for impeachments now, and we're excited about it. Ted dropped a burner today, so we'll go through it. We've also got the documents queued up. We'll read through Liz Cheney's letters over to Jack Smith and see exactly what they were in receipt of, because we've got a bunch of materials that are now unveiled for our perusal. But there's a bunch more. We also saw that there were hundreds, over 400 different entities. Please load. We're on the live stream right now. Okay, come on. We're live. There it is. We're going to go through this, and you can see 21 pages, hundreds of people under attack by the Democrat dragnet, taking out their political enemies across America. So a bunch of good stuff there in that segment, and we're excited to dig into it to expose these criminals. Now, after that, we'll talk about this story. It's making the rounds. We see the FBI is under some pressure because the Daily Mail and the New York Times were both reporting that the investigation into the Charlie Kirk assassination was kind of being, pressured down by Kash Patel. And the Daily Mail had a very spicy headline on this. Kash Patel shuts down the foreign intelligence probe into Charlie Kirk's death. Oh, gosh. That sounds like a cover-up. But they're saying that's an exaggerated source. The New York Times are liars. And Fox News was speaking to some other sources. And they're saying, no. FBI is denying any of that. They're disputing it. They're saying all of this sourcing is just exaggerated. And there's no cover-up happening at all, so don't worry about it. But we've also got some more documents pulled up. Earlier this week, we talked about not seeing Tyler James Robinson on the Zoom camera when he was calling in from jail. They're like, Tyler Robinson, is that you on the phone? He's like, yeah, it's me. Like, all right, great, glad you're here. So we didn't get to see him, but we have some documents now that have been published, including this one, which was the judge's ruling on those issues that we talked about earlier this week. I think it was on Monday. So we'll go through, see what the latest is. I got a bunch of documents up. I also had questions when we were listening to the judge about the modification of the standing decorum order. We've got that. And we also know what the next court dates are looking like. And we got some replies due in November. So all the latest on that. And then we'll talk about this lunatic lady who apparently some liberal podcaster called Jennifer Welch, which is a perfect name for her. And she is celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. And she's warning everybody that if you are a Democrat and you don't get on board with celebrating dead Republicans, dead conservatives, then we're coming for you. And so we'll see what this maniac had to say in a bit. Then lastly, we'll see what's going on at the Supreme Court because we've got a birthright battle that's a brewing. And 25 states are now submitting an amicus brief up to SCOTUS. And they're saying, we don't want this fake birthright citizenship interpretation that has been perverted for decades now to continue to be the law. So we'll go through that. And we got some other reaction on what's going on with ICE. You can see these foreign invaders wandering around with Mexican flags. There's one right there. There's another one right there. And there's more. And now the DOJ and others are responding to this. And we're going to hear from this individual here over from ICE and see what he says about these new ICE trackers and what they're going to do about it. So it's going to be a great stream, my friends. Thank you for being here. Thanks for subscribing to our channel. If you haven't already done that, we very much appreciate that. We are going to have a members only after party today, and we'll see you there if you are a member. We also had a great members only stream this morning, and we appreciate you becoming a member to support our work and inviting everybody you've ever met in your entire life to come over to our channel. Thank you for doing that. It's a big ask, I know, but we appreciate it. So now let's get in to the meat and potatoes and zoom in for further detail. Starting right here. Jack Smith, Liz Cheney, Benny Thompson, all busted. You see, the House Judiciary GOP just came out and they said they were actually colluding. Now, we've all known this, that there was a dragnet that was unleashed after January 6th by the illegally constituted J6 committee. And we read through many of the letters here on this channel from Benny Thompson. We called the member Fishing Benny Thompson. He sent letters, like 17-page letters. What'd you have for breakfast on January 6th? What'd you have for lunch? Where'd you order it from? What's your credit cards for? All the things, right? Went nuts, demanding answers from everybody. I think even Sean Hannity got a letter. So all of that was being orchestrated by the illegally constituted committee, which of course didn't have the requisite number of members on there. There wasn't an appointed Republican minority chair on the board. It was all just rigged. Nancy Pelosi put the Republicans on there, and the courts just let them do it because it's Congress, separation of powers, blah, blah, blah. But now you can see in newly released documents from the House Judiciary GOP that Benny Thompson and Liz Cheney were colluding, working hand in hand is what they say. And we've got transcripts now, and we're going to go through these letters and more. But this just came out from the House Judiciary GOP, and they published a whole batch of documents all over the place that we're going to look through. But it's in conjunction with another report that came over from their counterparts in the Senate. The Senate Judiciary Committee also publishing that Jack Smith subpoenaed records for over 400 Republican targets. And they got cell phone records from senators. And do you know who signed off on one of those subpoenas for phone records? Judge Boasberg. Ted Cruz is going to explain that to us coming up. But here you can see Grassley even posted this. He said, Senate Judiciary Committee chairman today made available 197 subpoenas from Jack Smith and his team against everybody. And we got those queued up as well. They were provided to Grassley through legally protected whistleblower disclosures. Okay, and this is an important point. The senators came out today and they're confirming many times over they need Kash Patel, they need Pam Bondi to do an internal investigation and get the documents themselves from within the agency and hand it over. Because right now, these are being essentially leaked. They're whistleblowers who are saying, you probably should know about this over in the Judiciary Committee. And the whistleblowers are knowing now that they're in a friendly environment. So we're going to, I think, see more and more of this. But we would also like our own agencies to get control of themselves at the DOJ and the FBI and volunteer these records over to Congress rather than having to rely on whistleblowers to kind of leak the documents out. But they were sent to 34 individuals and 163 businesses. 197 subpoenas requested testimony, communications, and records to at least 430 named Republican individuals. And this was just an onslaught attack against the hierarchy of the Republican Party. They wanted to take them out. It was like a purge. It was a legal attack. They spent tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of our money to do this. And some of these records came from banks and businesses. They wanted communications with media companies, CBS, Fox News, Fox Business, Newsmax, Sinclair, communications with any member, employee, or agent of the legislative branch of the government. They wanted advisors info, Stephen Miller, Dan Scavino, Jared Kushner, Laura Trump, and others. Statistical data and analysis relating to donors and fundraising efforts, and more. They went after conservatives everywhere. So Grassley unveiled the subpoenas, And you can see there's 1,700 pages of them. It's insane. All right here. You can see at the top of your screen right here. Let's just go to page 1 and you'll see Americans Fund Services got a subpoena, and they're just one of obviously hundreds, it seems like. So you can go through and just scroll through them. You can see what they're asking for. And it's a big file. These are all the subpoenas, okay? You can just scroll. Don't need to spend a lot of time on them because they're going to explain it to us. But it's 1,700 pages of documents. Now, the reason I'm scrolling all this is so you can see how much work goes into this. Our federal government was stood up in basically like a military fashion, right? For them, they probably were sitting around saying this is war. And I would imagine that you had some conversations over tea or whatever they drink over there, that this was going to be the end of Trump. Somebody said in some way, shape, or form, this is going to be the end of the Republican Party. We're going to use this to go after all of them and sideline everybody. And they were well on their way until Trump won. So you can see this just goes on and on and on. They said, if you're going to get a subpoena, we want documents, we want all the materials and everybody's that you ever worked with from one of these companies. Save America, Make America Great Again, American Voting Rights, Cyber Ninjas, Cypher, Scott Sigmund. We want Stephen Miller. We want Cleta Mitchell. We want Christina Bobb, one of Trump's lawyers. Everybody. For hundreds and hundreds of pages. It's so much work. It's hundreds of lawyers for years just waging war, funded by our government and enabled by the Biden administration. It is monstrous. And everybody who's involved should be investigated, fired, and maybe even criminally charged. Of course, we'll see what happens there. But that's just the batch of subpoenas. And if you look at the summary, so the Judiciary Committee came out, provided this big summary. And again, a lot of details, but I'm just showing you this so you know, oh yeah, they exist. Like they've got the evidence on this. Like, well, they didn't really subpoena anybody. Yeah, they did. It's all right here. You can see 1,700 pages of the subpoena. Here's everybody they went for. Again, all in a 21-page summary. All the banks, National Center banks, Save America, PACs they went after, MAGA PAC, they went after the RNC, Bank of America, TransUnion, Brad Parscale, one of Trump's advisors, Paychecks, McKenty Groups, Event Strategies, the American Greatness Funds, Angel Protection Systems. It just goes on and on and on. And everybody, Red State, Tim Murtaugh, American Voting Rights, Wells Fargo Bank, the Corrigans, Edward Corrigan, Patrick Corrigan. Everybody's getting subpoenas for 21 pages of this because they wanted to take out the Republican Party. They called all of us MAGA extremists, said that we were a threat to democracy. And all of that was just because they were scared to death about losing power because they lost to Hillary. And then they needed to prevent Trump, after stealing it in 2020, from ever coming back. And so it was a massive dragnet. Now, that is in the arena of Jack Smith's efforts. Okay, this is now we're in 2023 and he's getting his hands on a lot of this, but 400 people under scrutiny, hundreds of subpoenas go out. Now we see Jack Smith was also colluding with Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson, and they were doing the same thing, but they were doing it through congressional subpoena. So Jack Smith was going to go get a judge to sign off on this, and judges did, as Ted Cruz is going to explain. A judge was probably signing off on subpoenas for all the senators, saying that they should not even know about the subpoenas for their phone records. Okay. So the courts and Jack Smith in the special counsel's office was doing all of that. Simultaneously, there's like a little also legislative grand jury that's also working that has no judge, that has no court to guide it in any way, shape, or form, if you could even presume that Judge Boasberg has any judicial integrity at all, which we don't. But Cheney, Benny, they could do whatever they wanted. They could subpoena everybody. Bannon, Navarro, they said, how about no? How about we have executive privilege and we're not going to come in and testify in front of your illegal committee. 13 members were supposed to be on there. We didn't get 13. We got 9. We got 7 Democrats and 2 Republicans, Cheney and Kinzinger. Should have had 5. Kevin McCarthy should have appointed them, but couldn't because Nancy Pelosi rejected them. So by their own House resolution, HR 503, the entire committee was illegal, illegitimate by their own rules. And when they were sued over that, the court said, it's a separation of powers issue. Take it up with them. And there was nothing that could be done about it. So they imprisoned Bannon, they imprisoned Navarro, and they launched this dragnet. Then, because nobody could fight them, everybody's piling information without any due process or judicial scrutiny at all that's being demanded by Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson. And if they don't get it, you go to jail. And if they do get it, what do? They give it over to Jack Smith, who can't get the information as easily, right? Has to go through a process, have a judge approve it, and all the things. The Congress can just ask for whatever they want because it's Congress. There's no judicial oversight. It's a total scam and scandal. And it's a usurpation of our constitutional order. It's two sides colluding with each other, and they should all face consequences for it, and big ones too. And Trump is saying they should be in prison, okay? These thugs should be investigated and put in prison, and I couldn't agree more. It's a disgrace to humanity. Deranged Jack Smith is a criminal. And that is absolutely true. And it makes me so sick as an attorney, as somebody who you actually stand up and swear an oath. I did. I went and I got sworn in person and in Arizona, not in California. But I did swear an oath on writing, right? You want to uphold the law and preserve justice and all those beautiful things. And then these people come out and they violate all of the tenets of candor and integrity that you would expect out of an attorney, especially at a level like this. And they were all complicit in it because they thought, well, we'll win and there will be no consequences for us. So as long as they can get the big screen TV out of the Walmart on Black Friday, they're home scot-free. As long as they can get the TV fitting in the back of their car, they're good. So they should be in jail and in prison if they committed crimes, obviously. Now, here's some more from the congressional report. And the letters that we'll see here are now published. Writing on December 9th, 2022, over to Jack Smith, the so-called special counsel who is illegally appointed and completely illegitimate. And let's just pause here for a moment and play this clip from Merrick Garland, who knew this entire time that Jack Smith, was never properly appointed and was never Senate confirmed. Here's Thomas Massie getting into it with Merrick Garland. Well, he is still the Attorney General of the United States, who knows that all of this stuff Jack Smith is doing is illegal. He's not properly appointed as a U.S. attorney.
Was Jack Smith nominated by President Biden or confirmed by the U.S. Senate?
No.
You're asking me about a case again, motions filed as just
This is
cited
a simple
another...
question.
No, I'm not
Was Jack Smith nominated by President Biden?
No, he was not.
Was he confirmed by the Senate?
No, he was not.
Okay.
When was the special counsel statute passed?
There is no special counsel statute. There was an independent counsel
That's right. There is no statute. Isn't that nice?
statute that was expired.
So it expired. So what gives you the authority to appoint a special counsel? You've created an office in the U.S. government that does not exist without authorization from Congress.
Yeah, he did that. And we read through this a lot. And of course, he cobbled together what they called the Reno regulations. And they went in and they identified a bunch of other different statutes, like from the FBI rules and all these other rules that say, well, we can kind of do other things. And they just like picked and choose from all these different ingredients that don't actually create a special counsel at all. And they just kind of mashed it all together and said, we're going to have a special counsel. And you can read his initial appointing order and go through it. And you're like, what is it? And that's exactly what Trump did in Judge Cannon's courtroom that resulted in Jack Smith being declared not a real boy, because he's not a real boy. And of course, that case was dismissed. So Garland, at this moment in Congress, knows, even admits on the record, Jack Smith is not a real boy and doesn't care. All of this continues to go on under his nose with his tacit approval. So he should also be investigated and probably arrested. So let's go back into the letter. So with all of that background now, here is the letter to Jack Smith. And look who signed on this one. Benny Thompson, who got an auto pen pardon from Joe Biden, that's invalid, and Liz Cheney, who got an auto pen pardon that's also invalid. Here is what they got in a letter sent over to Jack Smith. They said, Dear Jack Smith, special counsel, this is Liz Cheney. Earlier this week, the select committee that's illegal to investigate the J6 attack produced to you 16 interview and deposition transcripts, along with exhibits associated with those transcripts. Here you go. It's all on a silver platter for you. You didn't have to do those interviews on your own. And remember, in the media, liars like Ian Sams and all the other people like Karine were repeatedly telling us Jack Smith is doing an independent investigation. He has no influence with anybody. Nobody's providing him anything. He's not colluding with Jack Smith or Alvin Bragg. Nobody's meeting with the White House. It's all separate because he's a special counsel. And there's no partisan influence. And the Biden people had nothing to do with it. All a lie. He got the Democrats' report from their illegal committee delivered to him by Cheney and Benny Thompson. Today, we're producing to you documents that were produced by the Select Committee by John Eastman, the doctor, from his account at Chapman University. And they also snagged text messages from the White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, okay? And just gave that over to Jack. Jack didn't have to go do any of that work because he had Liz Cheney, who was colluding with him, and now she's busted. Along with the latter, we're also producing a staff-created spreadsheet of the Meadows texts that contain additional information from privilege logs that Meadows provided to the Select Committee because he was under subpoena, and if he doesn't comply with the subpoena, he goes to jail, just like Bannon did. And Jack couldn't have gotten those same things without a little bit of judicial scrutiny. So Liz Cheney does the judicial bypass and then hands it off to him because these people are corrupt. Saying it were privilege logs that he gave up and names linked to telephone numbers where the Select Committee could identify them. So why don't you go prosecute these people too? The names linked to the telephone numbers were not provided by Mr. Meadows, but were instead based on some publicly available info. And so the Select Committee, we're going to continue to provide materials to your office on a rolling basis, bypassing any judicial scrutiny so that Jack Smith could have a much easier case and have access to evidence that he couldn't get on his own. It's disgusting. Now, here's another letter that they sent December 5th. Was that before or after? This one came first. Dear Mr. Smith, this is Benny and Liz, the J6 twins. As you know, the Select Committee to investigate is concluding our investigative work. And we will soon issue its report, but we also want to make the evidence we've gathered available to you. So today, we're producing 16 transcripts along with the exhibits and more, 2 letters, 2 confirmations, and more that they're going to provide info on a rolling basis. A bunch of stuff that Jack can't get from the Democrats' illegally constituted committee that was issuing invalid subpoenas that nobody could challenge because the court said take it up with Congress in D.C. Completely rigged, top to bottom, and now it's on record. We already knew they were doing this, but now we have the documents. So here you can see we have more. They attach this. Okay, here's some files for you to Jack Smith from Liz Cheney. Here are the witnesses. All these people came in. And, by the way, if the January 6th committee just wanted to, let's say, publish them on the internet, and then Jack Smith went over there and got those and used those as evidence, maybe they'd say there was some separation there. But they didn't. They were feeding him the information. Here you go. Here you go. Here you go. I wonder if he had any information going back their direction that said, hey, maybe you guys could subpoena this person, or maybe Benny Thompson can send a 21-page letter to this person and just increase the expansion of the dragnet that was subsuming all of America. On December 5th, then, now we get the FBI. They're opening up a report. This comes in 12/28. Here is this, now produced by Director Cash. Actually, I believe this was leaked. So this is a whistleblower. Because this came over from the House. Actually, maybe not. The House may have gotten this directly from Cash. This came from the House. The Senate was from the whistleblowers, just to be clear. Now, on December 5th and December 9th, the Select Committee said that we're voluntarily disclosing information to Jack Smith. Isn't that nice? So he didn't request it. They just sent it. Thanks, Liz. Transcripts included all these people, Michael Flynn and many others, John Eastman, some of the names you know, Jeffrey Rosen. We also got John Eastman, Mark Meadows, documents produced. And on December 16th, Assistant Special Counsel, whoever that was, we should know those names, provided the materials to another FBI agent, a special agent, on a hard drive. December 28th, another agent provided the password to this person, and the hard drive is now attached. The production and the passport and the password are all attached right here. Uploaded files right there. Now, look at all of these people who were involved in this corrupt investigation at the FBI. This is the Arctic Frost interview briefing. And Arctic Frost has kind of become this big name for the FBI investigation from the corrupt FBI agents, Walter Giardina, Timothy Tebow, and the rest of them, who created this case saying in emails, how can we tie this to Trump and all those things? Then when Trump announces, right, then we get Jack Smith and he just picks up that case. They give it to him. Here's the whole, binder of all of the evidence. He didn't do his own investigation. He was supposed to be a special kind of / independent counsel who was going to come in here and be disassociated from the corrupt Biden FBI, from the corrupt Biden DOJ. But that never happened. He just inherited their case file, inherited the J6 case file, and then prosecuted Trump all over the place on behalf of the Democrats. And they fed it to us like it was some independent, investigation. Never was. And look at all these people. Here you see Walter Giardina. His name is right there. And this is 2022. All these FBI agents, man, all these names redacted all over the country. Look at it. Look at all these names. I can't even count them all. Dozens of FBI agents. Hopefully they're all fired, but I would guess they're not. Probably most of them are not. All sat in on a briefing talking about how to investigate the former president and how they were going to take Timothy Tebow's corrupt investigation, who hated Trump, and posted about it regularly to ensnare him. They all sat around like, well, they should identify themselves if they haven't already and resign. But here's this one. To Walter Giardina, here's another one. This letter came in from some anonymous person. Dear all, to Walter from somebody, to Walter and like half the FBI. Here's now some language that I think we should put in here. It says, hi all, thank you again for your help today with interviews this week. Because the interviews were all recorded, we're going to put suggested language together for the interview report, the 302s. Please use the main file. Now, additionally, don't attach them to the main file, and they're all working on these interviews, okay? They're all just unleashing on this Republican dragnet. Here's someone, could you also add me to the file? Everything is restricted, so it's hard to see. Some other people want to get in on the game. Responding there. This all got released by the House. Hey, sorry, I got one follow-up question, somebody to somebody. We have one recording of knocking on our subject's door and leaving a voicemail. Then we have a second stating they called back. Do you want us to add that recording to this or what? So they're all talking about how to assemble these interviews, essentially. Yeah, include the recordings. Again, large numbers of the FBI, all involved, discussing how they're going to unleash hell on the Republican Party. So lots of emails in here, and a lot of it's just procedural. What should we do? Where should we produce these things? But we're just scrolling through it so you can see it's 234 pages in total. And there was, let me back up, because there was at the very start of this some Fani Willis overlap. And you remember, here is the other corrupt FBI agent, Timothy Tebow. We also saw Michael D'Antuono. He was the FBI agent who explained that they don't really know what happened to those cell phone records after the J6 pipe bomber could not be found. Well, they got corrupted. Did you follow up on that? Well, not really. We just didn't have the data. A bumbling idiot who was over there in the Washington field office. So they say that we're now opening up an investigation, and it's about Trump. And we've identified activity that violates federal law. They say the FBI has obtained evidence that individuals representing Trump conspired to corruptly obstruct the Congress and the certification on January 6th. And so the investigation gets opened, and then they go down to Georgia, and they start hanging out with Fani Willis indicted people. They go to Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, Epstein, and more. And as we fast forward through a lot of this, we got January 6th, a lot of background. They're opening up the investigation. But then they actually go and they interview somebody. And so I wanted to share that with you as soon as we can get there. So that's all opening it up. Then we get a field report. So here you see many of these people were involved in this. And Rosen stated a bunch of things. They're investigating him. Rosen called Clark, Perry and Meadows. They're investigating all of them, exchanging text messages. Hey, 11 days to go to 1/6, 25 days. We got to get going. They're all working on it. And Donahue's responding and more. Now, let me find the section with Floyd, because Floyd, you remember here. This was Willie Lewis Floyd, which is William Prescott Floyd. And you remember him. He got ultimately, I believe, arrested and charged in the Fani Willis case. He was one of the 19 co-defendants in that case. And so they went up to him. February 23rd, they said Walter Giardina contacted Floyd at his residence. And these interactions were secretly recorded by the agents, and they're all being submitted. These are the actual words that were spoken. So at approximately 11:25, that's Harrison Floyd guy worked for Trump or for the campaign. And at 11:25, this special agent and this special agent Giardina approached the entryway. They found his name on the lockbox. They heard him answer the door. They said, "Hey, we're with the FBI. Are you Floyd?" On the radio, Floyd says, "I'm not available, not at home, actually. I'm mobile." In response to a question from Floyd as to the FBI, they said, "Well, we're assigned to Jack Smith's investigation, matters involving the 2020 election." Floyd asked if the special agent was referring to Jack Smith. This agent replied, "Yep, that's why we're here." They said, "We become aware of news articles about your actions in Georgia." And so Fani Willis now may be connected to this case because Jack Smith didn't prosecute Trump in Florida. In Georgia. He did in Florida and DC, but not in Fannyland, in Atlanta. So now maybe Fani inherited this case from Jack Smith because it's more appropriate to bring as a state level charge. More collusion. Okay, now Jack just passes the state case off to Fani. And the Trump DOJ, the Biden DOJ, which is running Jack Smith because he's illegally appointed, they then send their number 3, Matthew Colangelo, over to Alvin Bragg. So it's all connected. Same thing is happening. The special agents who are a part of Jack Smith's team are investigating Harrison Floyd. Harrison Floyd was later indicted by Fani Willis. Floyd indicated journalists could print whatever they wanted. He said, "Yeah, we agree, but that's why we're here. We wanted to ask you about it," said the FBI agents. So Floyd asked, "Well, do you have any evidence of an actual crime? Otherwise, I'm not going to talk to you." They responded, blah, 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 blah. "We're not here to bother you, Floyd. We just want to, ask a couple questions." He said, "Well, do you have any evidence of a crime? Because otherwise, I'm not going to speak with you." And they said, "Well, we are conducting a criminal investigation. It's the mandate of Jack's office." Bunch of stuff redacted. Then someone stated the FBI did not have a crime. There was nothing here. He's not interested in talking. The agents indicated, okay, that's fair enough. And they left. Now, previous investigation indicates Fani agent note. Look at this. Agent note. Fani Willis, and this was drafted back in 23. Fani Willis is the DA in Fulton County, Georgia. Yeah, probably colluding with her too. Now, while the special agent and Giardina were speaking with Floyd, an apparent resident of the building opened the door and let the FBI agents in, punk. Agents proceeded to his apartment, which is located on this door. He says, "I don't want to talk to you." They said, "Oh, thanks for letting us in, neighbor." Walk in, go up to Floyd. Agents turned to the bottom of the entryway and they dialed Floyd on the intercom. They informed Floyd that it was understood. They said, "Hey, Floyd, it's us again. We know that you're not interested in speaking with us." They said, "Well, I'm actually with my daughter and I'm busy." Floyd said, "I'll have to talk to you some other time," and said, "Why don't you guys call Jim Jordan? Okay. Why don't you guys call Byron Donalds? Call Marjorie Taylor Greene, call Homeland, leave me alone." They said, "Well, do you have a lawyer? Can we talk to your personal lawyer?" He didn't respond. He said, "I'm with my kid." They're harassing him. He understood the agent was doing his job. He says, "I know what you're doing. And I know you're kind of put in a bad place, but I'm with my daughter and I appreciate your time, but I would appreciate it if you stop calling my phone, FBI punks." Stated he hoped the agents would have a great day. "Stop calling me. Have a great day. Goodbye." Now, throughout the interactions with the call system, agents and Floyd were disconnected, requiring them to redial him multiple times. He probably kept hanging up on him. I go, "No, another disconnect. Oh, bad cell signal. Let me call him back." He's like, "Oh, no." Now, it continues. Multiple times, the agent offered to provide Floyd with his cell phone number multiple times, and he didn't respond. Again, redacted for whatever reason. In an attempt to build rapport, special agent mentioned to Floyd the fact that Giardina, this is what they do. "Hey, Floyd, hey, I'm Walter Giardina. I'm a former United States Marine too." That's low, man. Exploiting your brotherhood as a U.S. Marine. to try to ensnare a fellow Marine. I don't know if that's kosher or not, but previous investigation indicated that Floyd previously served in the Marine Corps. And we appreciate that. You're supposed to use that to use that as leverage to build rapport with your criminal investigatees. Saying here, lots redacted, which I would like to see. And if these are coming from whistleblowers, imagining that the Judiciary Committee are doing the redactions for whatever reason. Floyd stated that Jordan didn't represent me, but Jordan was a lawyer. Was it your lawyer? He said, well, no, he said, Floyd then stated redacted. Bro, I don't even know who you are. Who are following me up here into my house with my daughter? You're not showing me an effing badge. You haven't shown me nothing. And you get the F away from me. Man, shout out to Floyd. Floyd then entered his apartment and slammed the door. Good for him. And then he got charged and put through the ringer. Like, this is the Democrats harassing a man with his daughter for doing nothing wrong. At no time between the first contact of Floyd outside the building or interactions did Floyd stop moving or allow agents an opportunity to even present their credentials. Well, we couldn't do it. He was moving too fast for us, so we couldn't pull it out and just show it to him. Because they're not that competent. Of course, as we know, they can't, FBI agents, Secret Service agents, they can't even stand on sloped roofs. So now Giardina had his credentials in hand when he arrived to the door. As the door was closing, Giardina said something redacted, which I don't know why we can't see. And then Giardina then turned to walk out of the floor and the first floor or whatever, the apartment foyer, through a doorway and into a stairway downstairs. Then another agent was approximately halfway down the first flight of stairs with Giardina, corrupt Fed, walking behind. Both agents were walking down the stairs with their backs turned towards the door when another agent heard a loud noise from behind, followed by yelling. Here it comes. As a special agent arrived on the landing between this floor and that floor, like they're trying not to identify his building. I'm fine with those redactions. That's fine. First and fifth or whatever. Second and third. Okay, got it. They observed Floyd rapidly running with something, running towards Giardina while screaming, "You're an effing piece of crap." Floyd moved directly towards Giardina and struck Giardina chest to chest. And then he backed away. Floyd closed the gap, placed himself chest to chest and nose to nose, screamed unintelligible phrases while striking him multiple times in the chest and possibly striking him in the face with his finger. All right. And so let me just pause here and just confirm that this is who I think it is, right? This is Harrison Floyd, who is initial contact with Floyd, Harrison William Prescott Floyd. And so let me just take a look just to make sure that we know who this is. And this is Harrison Floyd in Georgia. Yeah, it's exactly who we thought it was. And you remember this because we covered this guy at length. And he was epic. Okay, this is the dude who got arrested by Fannie Willis. And he hasn't been taking crap from anybody. Just as a picture, here's his mugshot from Georgia. Okay, Harrison Floyd right there. Full name, Harrison William Prescott Floyd. All right, so that's this dude. I didn't realize he was pounding his finger into the FBI chest. Amazing. So now that we are just confirming who that is, we can go back and pick this story back up because so far this is just amazing. So Giardina, the FBI agent, who's now getting pounded in the chest, "You're an effing piece of crap. Get out of my apartment." He didn't speak or react. Then the agent indexed his bureau, issued sidearm, but didn't draw. Then another agent loudly shouted commands for Floyd to back up. After approximately 18 seconds of sheer horror for these FBI agents, who are the biggest babies on the planet, going after innocent men hanging with their daughters, then Floyd backed away. Enough for Giardina to move away from Floyd and run down the stairs like a baby. Then another special agent continued issuing commands from Floyd to Floyd. "Back up, back away, Harrison," to the agents as they were leaving and backing up. Floyd continued to advance on these agents as they were proceeding down the stairs, telling, "Get out of my apartment." Floyd stated he had not seen anything, and the agents had not given him anything or shown him a badge. He says, "I don't even know who the F you are. I don't even think you're FBI agent, so get out of my building and out of my face. This special agent then stated the agents were happy to show Floyd their credentials. They said, well, we'll show you it finally. Don't attack us. As the agents were leaving, as they are basically breaking into his building, somebody else, let him in. You're knocking on his door. He's like, get the hell out of here. Not showing him the badge. So shout out to Harrison Floyd, man. That dude is alpha. On December 1, 2023, then special agents followed up on another lead by contacting Adam Kinzinger. Oh, busted. Also in line with Liz Cheney and Fishing Benny Thompson. After being advised of the identity of the agents, Kinzinger provided the following information. He starts spilling the guts on everybody, and he's directly on the J6 committee. While former Congressman Riggleman worked with the select committee, he also found a contact and passed off the information. Kinzinger indicated that Riggleman may never have received direction on what to do with the data, and the toll data was 30 million lines of data. Kinzinger believed it was in electronic format, but did not know if it was original. So again, Kinzinger is colluding with the FBI. Kinzinger is a congressman. It's Adam Kinzinger, right? Yeah. Former Congressman Adam Kinzinger. Yeah. On the J6 committee, right? Yeah, it was Kinzinger and Cheney and crybaby Adam were out there apparently colluding with the FBI agents who were doing investigations to prosecute the president and his allies, guys like Harrison Ford. It was one big, disgusting, incestuous political attack to go after their political opponents, and they lied to us all saying it was legitimate and above board. So now you can see the FBI commingled with the J6 committee, illegally constituted J6 committee, illegally constituted Jack Smith, not a real boy, illegally appointed, illegally apportioned, should have never had any access to any of the money that produced 1,700 pages of subpoenas, all in this document, that launched an attack on dozens of Americans and investigated hundreds more. Sick behavior. And Merrick Garland was in on it. Now, all this was happening from Jack Smith, and Ted Cruz came out today to explain what he thinks should happen next, and it starts with the word I.
Arctic Frost is Joe Biden's Watergate.
Way worse than that.
Merrick Garland was a fundamentally corrupt attorney general.
That's true.
Jack Smith was a fundamentally corrupt prosecutor.
Also true.
This was a political enemies list from the beginning. 197 subpoenas for 430 Republican entities and individuals. That is an absolute and egregious abuse of power. The Biden Justice Department signed off on issuing subpoenas for the phone records of at least 9 U.S. senators. 20% of the Republicans in the United States Senate were the target of this fishing expedition. They did so in complete contravention of the Constitution, of separation of powers, of the speech and debate clause, of free speech, of basic rights of privacy. This is an executive who believes it is justified spying on their opponents in the legislature because they convince themselves the ends justify the means. I want to talk to you about one of those subpoenas.
Ted's.
One of those subpoenas went from Jack Smith to AT&T, seeking my cell phone communications. It went to AT&T, and I actually want to commend AT&T for doing the right thing. AT&T is based in Texas. AT&T looked at that subpoena, and they went to their legal counsel. And they said, what should we do with that subpoena? And their legal counsel said, you cannot comply because this is protected by the speech and debate clause of the U.S. Constitution. And so AT&T declined to comply.
Yeah, good call.
Did not hand over my cell phone records. Now, one might ask, ordinarily, a phone company being asked to hand over the phone records of a sitting senator would notify that senator. Well, there was a reason AT&T did not do so. Accompanying the subpoena.
Nice move, Ted.
was an order, which I have in my hand right here, an order that was signed by Judge James E. Boasberg.
Oh.
Now, who is Boasberg? Boasberg is that radical leftist judge who is out of control, who has been issuing nationwide injunctions, one after the other, trying to stop President Trump from carrying out his mandate from the voters.
And that was the judge that ordered the airplane to be turned around when it was midair, filled with illegals going to El Salvador. Then when Trump didn't do that because they were already overseas, he then issued basically a contempt order, and the Supreme Court had to come back and reverse him on that. And he still moved forward with it because he's a partisan hack judge. And he's gotten a strange number of cases assigned to him that are going through the DC District Court. Very strange behavior. And he's the same dude who is now approving the subpoenas for senators' records. Boasberg. Jeb.
Judge Boasberg issued an order to to AT&T and signed that order prohibiting AT&T from informing me of this subpoena for at least 1 year. And Judge Boasberg gave the basis for that order, and I'm going to quote from the order Judge Boasberg signed. The court finds reasonable grounds to believe that such disclosure will result in destruction of or tampering with evidence, intimidation of potential witnesses, and serious jeopardy to the investigation. That's an order a judge signed. Now, I can tell you right now, there is precisely zero evidence to conclude that I am likely to destroy or tamper with evidence or to intimidate potential witnesses. Zero evidentiary basis for that. This order is an abuse of power. This order is a weaponized legal system. My assumption, we don't have the subpoenas that were issued for the other senators, but my assumption is Judge Boasberg printed these things out like the placemats at Denny's, one after the other.
Probably.
We don't know that for a fact, but I feel confident that he concluded it's likely that Lindsey Graham would destroy evidence, and Marsha Blackburn would destroy evidence, and Eric Schmidt would destroy evidence, and Chuck Grassley would destroy evidence. If a litigant makes a claim for which there is no factual basis, that litigant is subject to sanctions in federal court. And if a judge signs an order reaching a factual conclusion for which there is zero evidence whatsoever, that judge is abusing his power. I am right now calling on the House of Representatives to impeach Judge Boasberg.
Yes!
Judge Boasberg put his robe down, stood up and said, sign me up to be part of the partisan vendetta against 20% of the Republicans in the Senate. That is a dereliction of duty and a violation of the judicial oath. And I want to thank Chairman Grassley and Chairman Johnson for pursuing this tenaciously like a dog on a bone. We are going to get the answers of every person who signed off on this abuse of power, and mark my words, there will be accountability.
Liked it.
For these zealots who wanted to corrupt the Department of Justice and corrupt the judiciary in order to try to attack their enemies list. That is unconstitutional, it is immoral, and it is wrong.
It is wrong. Nicely done from Ted Cruz. And I'd like to see that order. Don't think he's posted it yet, but all the details about what Boasberg did, who presented to Boasberg, what was their basis and evidence presented to say that Ted Cruz, a sitting senator, was going to destroy evidence, so you had to treat him like a common criminal. What evidence do they have of that? And the judges, as we mentioned earlier, were just enabling Jack Smith, and anything that Judge Boasberg wouldn't get, which was basically anything he wanted. I mean, if a judge is going to grant a subpoena for a sitting senator, not just one time, 8 times, we had questions about how the subpoenas were ultimately obtained. Now we're learning it's from Boasberg, another judge we've covered many times here, who is unleashing a judicial coup against the executive power. It all makes sense. And what Jack couldn't get from his rigged courts, He went over to Liz Cheney and to Benny Thompson and got it from them. And the entire administration lied to us for years that there was no collusion between any of them. We can see it in the documents. They were funneling info to Jack. Jack was probably funneling info to Fannie. The Biden DOJ funneling info to Alvin Bragg, sending over their number 3, Matthew Colangelo, in one giant, disgusting lawfare attack on basically half the country and the new president of America. Sick, sick behavior, but we've not seen the Senate as fired up as they are over this. Once their phone records got involved, and well, we're going to do something about this. So we're excited to see that they're joining the party, and we're going to keep our eye on this one. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, now we're not done yet, my friends. We got some Charlie Kirk updates and a birthright citizenship battle brewing at the Supreme Court. But let's hit this story first, and then we'll get into it. Here is the latest. FBI cover-up story making the rounds. You can see the Daily Mail wrote a spicy headline here saying, Kash Patel, the FBI director, shuts down the Charlie Kirk foreign intelligence probe in an explosive feud with Trump's counter-terror chief. And the article's fleshing out this battle between Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, and this gentleman down here known as Joe Kent. You can see here's a photograph of Tulsi and Joe Kent out there standing next to a helicopter doing some PT or something. But now the Daily Mail is saying there was a probe that was silenced in the investigation of Charlie Kirk, may he rest in peace, of the assassination that removed him way too soon from this planet. But the report is based on the New York Times. And the New York Times, as we know, is very much garbage. And Fox News is saying the FBI is disputing the report, saying Kash Patel did not limit a probe. All of that is being exaggerated. And so we'll go through the stories, and then we got some updates on the case itself, because we now have the order that we heard about in court from the judge that was allowing Tyler Robinson to wear civilian clothes but remain in cuffs. We've got that. We've got the new decorum order, and we have this maniac lunatic called Jennifer Welch, this woman who is celebrating the death of conservatives and demanding the Democrats support that concept. So we'll get into that. We'll hear from her and get more reaction on what's going on tonight over at Turning Point. But this story is all over X right now. People saying, oh, this is very suspicious. Saying Kash Patel shuts down a foreign intelligence probe. Not good, but they deny it. FBI Director Kash, they write, crushed efforts by Tulsi's closest advisor, Joe Kent. And it's based, this headline, on this New York Times story. And so they actually got the sourcing on this. And here's what they say. Officials' access to the FBI files drew pushback from the FBI. There's Joe Kent, who was looking into all this. And here they explain. 3 journalists, including Maggie Haberman, who has, for some weird reason, a lot of access to Trump people over the years. They write, the head of the National Counterterrorism Center examined FBI files in the last several weeks to investigate whether Tyler Robinson, the guy charged, had support from someone else, a foreign power, or another entity. That came out according to multiple people with knowledge of the matter. Now, the inquiry was led by Joe Kent, the director of counterterrorism, working with Tulsi, and it alarmed Kash Patel, they say, saying that Patel and other senior officials thought that Kent was overstepping, saying, hey, that's our investigation, treading on the FBI's responsibility and potentially interfering with the investigation and the prosecution of the suspect, Tyler Robinson. And one way that might happen, I'm not sure if they're going to get into it or not, but the one idea, and they might get into it, one idea would be that if the other agencies identify another person, then the lone gunman theory goes out the window, and that creates reasonable doubt for the currently charged defendant. But if that is the case, don't you want to know about these other people who are involved? You don't just want to put a nice little bow on your investigation. Well, we got the guy, lone shooter, that's it, case closed. Why don't we go out for pizza? It needs to be a little bit more thorough. Obviously, we want every stone overturned so we can get to the bottom of this. But you can see how there might be some interference concerns, because if somebody else comes in, it's too many cooks in the kitchen, and you might say you might jeopardize our current investigation and open up an opportunity for the defense to try to dismiss the case. Now, Robinson is accused of killing Mr. Kirk last month. As the conservative activist made an appearance, we know the story. The Senate did confirm Mr. Kent as the director of the Counterterrorism Center. He's one of the closest advisors to Tulsi. And here's the story. Mr. Patel was troubled that Mr. Kent had gone through the FBI material that was related to the case. According to people with knowledge on the matter, Joe Kent's efforts were a topic at a White House meeting that happened recently. It included Mr. Patel, Cash, Mr. Kent, and his direct superior, Tulsi Gabbard. So FBI, Joe Kent, and Tulsi all in the room. Top Justice Department officials were there. Vice President J.D. Vance, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles were also there, according to several people who spoke to the Times. The people interviewed by the Times were granted anonymity to speak frankly. So we don't know who, but the FBI and the DOJ, they generally keep tight reins on these cases so that nobody can poke holes in their case. And while Robinson is currently facing state charges, Joe Kent's efforts, they say, could provide fodder to defense attorneys who could use the notion that more than one person was involved to raise reasonable doubt in the minds of the jurors, right? Oh, the lone gunman theory now goes out the window because Joe Kent and the director of national intelligence are thinking maybe there's foreign help, or there's an Antifa group, or somebody's funding the attack. Now, since Kirk's death, some White House officials have pressed for sweeping investigations of liberal groups and donors, Trantifa, and other president's allies outside the administration are convinced that this killing is part of a broader plot, despite a lack of evidence to support that. Officials involved in the arrest say it's just Mr. Robinson, Tyler Robinson, the assassin alone, the lone gunman. Now, Kent, Joe, told administration officials that a lower-level FBI official gave him access to the agency's files, which Patel said he was not aware of, according to some people that the New York Times interviewed. In response to questions from the Times, Mr. Patel and Ms. Gabbard, they released a joint statement that did not even address the debate over the inquiry. They responded, they said, the FBI and the intelligence community under the direction of the president will leave no stone unturned in the investigation and the assassination of our friend, Charlie Kirk. All right. But multiple people said tensions over Mr. Kent Joe's work with Tulsi had persisted for some time, part of a broader set of issues. So maybe Cash is just tired of it. He's like, man, this dude is always sniffing around here. Go do your business over there. I got the FBI covered. Get out. The meeting that Mr. Kent attended at the White House was one of two that was intended to ameliorate tensions between the FBI and Tulsi. The People brief said the earlier one, which was focused on multiple issues, included Kirk. It was so tense that very little was accomplished. They had to come back a second time. Now, we know Mr. Robinson was identified as the shooter. Some officials inside the government, though, raised questions about the assassin's abilities and the training after security footage was released showing him jumping from a ledge. Early in the investigation, evidence was collected that contained words often associated with Antifa writing, namely inscriptions on the bullets. In the document, Robinson claimed that they were just mostly an internet meme. Now, the Counterterrorism Center gathered material from intelligence agencies about potential foreign ties to Tyler Robinson, and also looked at foreign funding of people who identify with the far left as the movement known as Antifa, all the Soros cash and more. Mr. Trump has said that Robinson was radicalized by the left, but he didn't connect him to Antifa, but did designate Antifa a terror organization. Now, under Mr. Kent, the National Counterterrorism Center has taken a higher profile than in the years past, issuing warnings about terror attacks, but he might be pushing into areas that are in the jurisdiction of the FBI and the CIA. So that's what the Times reported. Then Fox News came back out and they said, no. We talked to somebody else, okay? A high-ranking source is downplaying all this reporting about internal tensions between Cash and Joe over files of this. They say its director, Joe Kent, the National Counterterrorism Center, was recently looking at the assassination case, and that reportedly ruffled feathers. But the source told Fox News that the tensions in the report were exaggerated, as you could expect, and that there was no serious dispute between the agencies or their leaders. So Fox reporting, somebody says that's not true. They got a statement. They said the ODNI and the FBI are united in working with Congress to strengthen our counterintelligence. Kent was looking to ties to terror groups, including Antifa. Patel allegedly took issue into that, and they all had a big meeting with J.D. Vance and others. One potential concern is that this would be less protective of the investigation. Here's what a defense attorney says, though, in Chicago. This person called Donna says, well, I don't think this helps the defense in any way. How does it help the defense? If the agencies didn't do this, the defense would just attack them for not conducting a thorough investigation. Yeah, it's a great point. You just say, well, you just made him the shooter. The lone gunman theory. You didn't even investigate anything else. So you're just singling him out because you wanted to put a bow on this. But, defense attorneys are going to quibble with everything. That's what we do. So she said, even if investigators had found additional suspects, it doesn't change the case. Like, is there evidence that he shot him or not? Does it take away from the fact that he was the shooter? I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, if they've got DNA, if they've got evidence, if they've got an admission, if they got it all, it's like open and shut. So if there was a foreign, operation or foreign connection to money or whatever, if he's the shooter, you've got enough evidence for the shooter. So all of this is now moving forward, and we've been covering this case for a while, and we've got some documents now to review, including this one. So earlier this week, there was a hearing for Tyler Robinson's case. He, of course, is the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk, and the judge came back down and issued this 9-page order. Gives us some background here. He said, due to the potential disclosure of court security protocols, we held a closed hearing on October 24th. And I was pitching a fit earlier this week about how we don't have any visuals of Tyler Robinson in custody appearing at these court proceedings. And apparently they held another closed hearing that maybe we did not attend to. Now, Mr. Robinson, they said we discussed a bunch of things. We stipulated that the state's motion to conduct all non-evidentiary hearings virtually and the request to limit all electronic media coverage needs further briefing. And I thought I misheard that. I thought, what? The state is asking to conduct all non-evidentiary hearings virtually. They don't even want to show up. They just want to zoom in on this. Okay. And the parties are going to request all of them together, the state and the defense, to limit electronic media coverage. Why are the prosecutors asking for these things? Those issues are not yet ripe for decision, so we're going to brief those further. Now, if the state wants all non-evidentiary hearings conducted over WebEx, file a motion to do that. The court is not going to rely on the briefing that you already gave us. File something separate, and we'll get it and see what their basis is for that. It's ridiculous. The time for a response and a reply will be governed by rule. As with all motions, the parties must file a request. Now, if you also want to restrict electronic media coverage, you may file a joint motion. Why would the prosecutors want to do that? The court will not rely on the briefing already provided. In their motion, the parties must add more, and we'll get more information on that once it's fully briefed. And there's more. Now, the sheriff member added a response, and the sheriff's not a party to the case, so we can consider it, but it's not going to be a part of the official record. In the future, if you have a concern about security, don't add it into the file. You're not a party to the case. Just tell the prosecution, and the prosecution can add it. And you don't need to submit it. So that's stricken, but we will also consider that you have security concerns. Got it. All right, so that's kind of moot. Now, then we talk about his civilian clothing. They say he moves to appear without restraints at the other hearings, and they grant him the civilian clothing rights. The state, they argue that dressing him in jail clothing is for safety, but the judge says, we're going to balance everything. We think that his right to a presumption of innocence and unbiased jury supersedes the security concerns of dressing in civilian clothing. It's arguably unprecedented in the state of Utah, at the point we made earlier. Photographs and visual recordings will be shared all over the place. There's a strong likelihood that a substantial number of potential jurors in Utah will view these images and may associate this with guilt, which is just a wild standard because there were pictures of Trump in court every day. They released a mugshot of Trump in the middle of a presidential election. So I get it. I understand the concept, but it's just interesting how it's selectively applied. The danger of prejudice is compounded by technological advancements like AI, which will allow the images to be manipulated. So the court intends to hold all of his hearings as special settings. Unless unforeseen circumstances arise, he will be the only defendant in the court holding cell when he appears. And again, he hasn't even appeared yet. He appeared the first time. We never saw him. There is a low likelihood that he will not be able to be identified or tracked if there's commotion. And so the court orders that he is dressed in civilian clothing. We're not going to lose sight of him. He's going to be the only person here. And he's also going to have to appear with restraints. Now, he says the restraints are going to taint the jury pool. But he says, no, this has been a lot of pretrial publicity generated here. As with many cases, public interest may both wax and wane, but it's probably going to persist. Visual recordings showing that he's dangerous with the handcuffs on may undermine his innocence. But the charges are serious. He shot someone in the neck, allegedly. And so there's going to be a lot of strong emotions here as well. And so therefore, we deny Tyler Robinson's request to be unrestrained during the pretrial proceedings. At a trial, they'll take the handcuffs off. But during the pretrial proceedings, he'll be cuffed, and the media will not be allowed to take pictures of his hands. So accordingly, the motions are granted in part, denied in part, signed off on by Tony Graff Jr. Then we got a new standing decorum order. This just came out from the judge as well. And here's what they say. The purpose of this order is to allow right now for electronic coverage of court proceedings. Now, again, this might be modified later because both sides are briefing this, and apparently they want to limit access, which is insane. We'll see what the judge does. So far, he's allowed at least the camera to be in there. Have not seen Tyler Robinson show up on court, but he says, here's the amended order. Bags, face coverings, dangerous items, seating, conduct of the spectators, behave yourself, don't scream things, use of electronic devices. What about news? It says the media is going to be here. Media reps shall identify themselves and follow the court rulings. Recording or transmitting images or sound of court proceedings without our permission is prohibited. So if he says no, we're cut off. News reporters need to read it and understand the locations of cameras are all subject to court approval. After the court has appointed pool photographers, then the media will decide how to pool the video. The arrangement shall be reached before proceedings commence. You all shall use the right equipment. No media interviews in the courtroom. Media representatives don't photograph court employees. If he's in physical restraints, this is the addition. Media representatives don't record your hands. Nothing in the lobby. No other permission to do anything else that we don't give you permission to do. So also signed off on by the judge, Tony F. Graff. And so as it stands right now, looks like we're still going to have media coverage. And we've got some extensions of time. We've got another motion that is due November 5th. But other than that, we're not due back in this case until we have oral arguments scheduled in January. So we got motions that are going to be back and forth, but the next in-person proceeding is not until January of next year. So we'll keep our eye on this case, but unfortunately we have lunatic lefties like this woman. Her name is Jennifer Welch, and she is encouraging Democrats to commit more violence. Here's what she sounded like, courtesy of our friend Colin Rugg over on X.
People are waking up only in New York City. You're mistaken. Look at this clip of a wine mom at the No Kings March. Play the clip.
Whatever his name was?
Charlie Kirk, ma'am?
Yeah, him is horrible. Horrible.
Charlie Kirk is horrible?
Yes, I'm glad he's not here.
You're glad he's dead?
Yes.
Why would you say something like that, ma'am?
Because he was horrible on the campuses, the college campuses. Horrible person.
You know what? I do the exact same thing.
Well,
would you
so
be
sorry.
glad if I would die?
Maybe. I'd have to think about it.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Your friend just said she'd be happy if I died.
I think we need to...
Yeah, they all laugh about it. This is a point we've made before. They think if you're a racist or a fascist or you're bad for colleges or something, that you deserve to die. In other words, being a murderer, killing somebody like this, is less of an offense than being a racist. If it's be alive and a racist or be dead and not a racist, they'd rather you be dead. Because that's how twisted their humanity is. Now you can see this lib woman just laughing in here. And I don't think this is a joke. I mean, she might think it's a joke. Actually, I don't think she thinks it's a joke either. Listen to this.
So listen up, Democratic establishment. You can either jump on board with this shit or we're coming after you in the same way that we come after MAGA. Period. Stop taking AIPAC money. Go on an I'm sorry I took AIPAC money atonement tour.
So they're going to shoot you in the neck or something and wish you were dead if you take AIPAC money? All right, I didn't think that was going there, but they're just nuts. So I guess that it's Israel money is what she's so mad about. All right, so this is what they're doing. They laugh about it. There are people out there who wish you dead, and then she starts to transition into AIPAC money. Is that why they're going to shoot people like Charlie Kirk in the head, in the neck? Sick people, but the mission marches on. J.D. Vance is going to be in attendance at an Ole Miss Turning Point USA event tonight, and it is jamming over there. Expected to have 10,000 people out there pushing forward the legacy of Charlie Kirk, in spite of these lefties' best attempts to end it. Here's a quick report and scenes from the facility.
All right now in Oxford, Mississippi, a cold rain isn't stopping the crowds from forming hours before tonight's Turning Point USA event, where Vice President J.D. Vance will join Erica Kirk on stage. Turning Point's Ole Miss chapter President Leslie Lockman is standing by. But first, let's get to our correspondent, Madison Scarpino, who is live in Oxford for us. Hi, Madison.
Hey, Sandra. Doors don't open for these attendees for another nearly 2 hours, but ever since this line started forming at around 11 a.m. local time, you can't see the end. There is expected to be around 10,000 people here tonight. Most people we've talked to are Ole Miss students, of course, but there are also high school students here, parents, local politicians, and they're all fired up. They say they want to keep Charlie Kirk's legacy alive, and they say they're especially honored that this is his wife, Erica Kirk's only scheduled campus tour stop.
I think she is a very strong, resilient woman, and I really look up to her. We are honestly so truly honored that she decided to come to Ole Miss. Ole Miss has such a big community, and we really showed out. And I really think that this was the best place she could have come.
These students tell me they're also thrilled to hear from Vice President J.D. Vance. The plan is for Erica Kirk to introduce the VP. He says there will be a quick speech, and as mentioned, he then plans to answer questions and have an open dialogue, just like Charlie did.
Nice to see the turnout, and the legacy of Charlie lives on in Turning Point. J.D. Vance, Erica Kirk will be there tonight, and I'm sure it's going to be amazing to watch. So we'll keep our eye on the Tyler Robinson case and see what comes next. But as it stands, we've got a lot of time left until we have our next court dates in January. A lot of filings and motions will be coming in. We'll be here to cover them. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, my friends, we got one final segment on the day, and then we'll hear from you. The birthright battle at the Supreme Court. We now have 25 states joining in to say the current interpretation of giving illegal aliens and their kids birthright citizenship automatically needs to be ended. It was never intended to be interpreted that way, and the Supreme Court has an obligation to correct it. So we're going to go through this filing. You can see it's Tennessee, Iowa, and we think it's now up to 25 because here is the post from the Attorney General in Tennessee. He said, hey, today, Tennessee and Iowa and 23 other states. So 23 plus Iowa plus Tennessee. Pretty sure that's 25. Got to get a calculator. But they say, we are now urging the Supreme Court to clarify the 14th Amendment citizenship clause is not automatic citizenship for illegal aliens. You don't get to break the law and then come in and exploit the law to your benefit. That's ridiculous. And so we're now going to SCOTUS to reverse this. Your state might be included in this list. Mine is not. Tennessee, Iowa, Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Georgia, Florida, Idaho, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Texas, Utah, West Virginia, and Wyoming. All here saying, Supreme Court, can you please end this? It's been ridiculous. It's been going on for too long. Here's what they write. Fast forwarding through the table of contents, getting started. We got 9 Supreme Court judges who are going to be hearing this from half the states. They say, recent years have seen an influx of illegal aliens, over 9 million, at least, overwhelming our infrastructure and our nation's capacity to assimilate these people in here. And many of these non-citizens go to interior states after crossing the border illegally. Now, all these states thus now are facing significant economic, health, and public safety issues from policies that are holding out a powerful incentive for illegal immigration, beyond what the Citizenship Clause even requires. And so now judicial review must rest on sound policy. But plaintiffs and the courts below, they're not doing that here. They dismissed any need for a deep dive. Okay, all of the lower level courts have been like, oh, this is well settled law. It's been this way for 100 years. Casting their reading as of the Citizenship Clause as being settled and beyond debate. Never mind the plaintiff's mere presence at birth rule. You just get here. If you're geographically in the country, plop a baby, you're good to go, even if you broke the law. It cannot be right all the time. Everyone agrees. Or that it is contrary to the expressed views of many contemporaneous cases and commenters, or that it rewards illegal behavior in a way that no drafter or ratifier of the Citizenship Clause ever endorsed. Courts have viewed plaintiffs' correctness as a foregone conclusion, but it's not. It's seriously mistaken. Now, not only are the illegal alien birthright people and their conception of the Citizenship Clause not obvious, as the Solicitor General explained, precedent also forecloses this. It's not about mere presence here. It's not about geographic region. Contra their historical arguments, contemporaneous sources suggest instead what common sense supports. Conferring citizenship requires a more meaningful connection than being in the country illegally or by happenstance. That connection, evidence instructs, was domicile, parental domicile, as we saw in the Wong Kim Ark case from 1898. Because Wong Kim's parents were Chinese who were lawful, permanently domiciled in California. But the illegals, they and the courts below, they overread that decision and they pervert it so that birthright citizenship can be granted to criminal invaders. Meanwhile, the plaintiff erroneously relies on the long practice where they just enabled it. But the states are now saying we've had enough. Okay, we reiterate the importance of holding the litigants to the stringent requirements. Evolving litigation strategies after CASA reinforce the need for strict adherence to the law. This case is a scenario, no matter what case or conclusion the court reaches, there is no set of circumstances under which the government can enforce the executive order as it stands with these limitations. At the very least, this court should limit relief and stop the lower courts from stopping this from going forward. Here's what they say. The illegals would have us all believe this is an easy case, they say. Its briefing below calls the government's position fringe, flatly contrary to the 14th Amendment, plainly unconstitutional. It even accuses Trump of trying to impose Dred Scott. But the puffery cannot cure the glaring deficiency in their arguments. Examining the relevant text and history and precedent, their position that it's just mere presence, you just come in here and drop a baby off, you're good, it's anything but a foregone conclusion. Let's start with the beginning. First, the 14th Amendment aimed to constitutionally engraft the protections of the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Here they put in the 1866 Act, they said that all persons born in the U.S. and not subject to any foreign power, see that? Excluding Indians, are declared citizens. That was in 1866. Not subject to any foreign power, no matter their race or color. That got then adopted into the current version. Second, there was also near universal consensus that both the Citizenship Clause and the 1866 Civil Rights Act sought to overturn the Dred Scott decision, which treated U.S.-born descendants of African slaves as property rather than U.S. citizens. The provisions also sought to redress the systematic denial of civil rights to freed slaves by prohibiting race-based discriminations. It was all about race. But race or alienage is not parental residency. And they have failed to understand this distinction. And third, While they advocate for a mere presence rule, they must at the same time agree that their pure just solely approach does not hold in all cases. And there's just solely and just sanguinis, which is the other phrase. One is birth by basically geography. The other is birth by blood. Like, is your parent in just sanguinis, Latin for blood, is do you have a blood connection to another citizen? A parent or somebody else is a citizen of the country. Specifically, the illegals and their supporters say, well, presence is not enough for Indians or foreign diplomats or others. And we continue, they ask, it's whether born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That's the key phrase. And fourth, immigration restrictions as we know them did not even arise until the 1880s, after the ratification of the 14th. There is no contemporaneous discussion supporting their maximalist position that children whose parents are here illegally after evading detection are born as citizens. If we reward that illegality, it would have violated the legal rules, which are ex terpia causa. This is kind of a pretentious filing, I got to be honest. To sum up, then, the plaintiff's first principles position is that a provision that is aimed to confer citizenship on free slaves and does not address non-residents binds the executive branch in perpetuity, and they're going to lose. So they say there are two apparent problems with their position. They debate how the clause departs from a pure just solely approach, and that jurisdiction's a low bar. Basically, if you're here physically, you are subject to the jurisdiction thereof. We can arrest you, we can imprison you, so our laws touch you, and that satisfies the 14th Amendment. They give us some background on the phrase, and a lot of this is just kind of dense. They talk about the debates on the 1866 Act. Senator Lyman Trumbull, the primary drafter of the provision, said if you're temporarily here, you're not a citizen. And if you have a foreign allegiance, you're not a citizen. You need to owe allegiance to the United States. More debates from the record. In 1881, Justice Joseph Story and others, a lot of commentary about this and a lot of bullet points. All right, to be honest, this is not that interesting or that great. A lot of background that we've already seen here. The at-border legal fiction aligns with the historical domicile-based approach. All right. All right, so we get it. Now, you can see not all that interesting, to be perfectly honest with you. And we'll just fast forward through it all and move on because it's kind of a pretentious decision. Anyways, so we got it. We got 25 states all submitting it, saying Wong Kim Ark was erroneously interpreted in the aftermath. It applied to lawful permanent residents who were here in the country legally. A lot of case law, a lot of debates from the original act of 1866 and how that interpreted and turned into the 14th Amendment. We got it. Bill Malugin, feds arrest another anti-ICE suspect. So many of these people who are throwing rocks at ICE vehicles like this dude, if they had a baby, if he was an illegal, that's a citizen. Perfect. And they can come up and throw more rocks at ICE officials. And here is more. You can see Johnny Maga says that immigrant students with Mexican flags are now staging mass walkouts to accommodate illegal students. Here's a short clip from Channel 5, and they're all waving their Mexican flags around. That guy's wrapped up in it.
Students are calling on CPS to offer hybrid learning because they say some are too scared to go to school. A school board member called for the same thing last week.
Only solution I could think of is give those students an option to stay home and keep their education going.
Things remained peaceful during today's march.
Yeah, they remained peaceful. Look at all these Mexican flags all being waved all over the place. Why don't they go back to Mexico and get their education back there if they love Mexico so much? These are foreign invaders. They might be students, but they're foreign invaders who have no allegiance at all to America, as evidenced by their foreign flags. So if they're illegal aliens and they're foreign invaders and they want to go back to Mexico, I don't know what the big holdup is. Just go back. We don't even have to deport you. There's an incentive to go, take the deal, and get out of our country. So that is that. We also had libs of TikTok sharing this, saying that now this New Mexico representative, this woman, apparently just launched a website to track ICE agents which if you impede ICE officers, that's a crime. And here is what ICE had to say about that. They said, the ICE tracker that Democrats have planned will put targets on our agents. And it's going to give convicted rapists, sex offenders, fentanyl dealers, and other violent criminals time to escape, which is what they want, so they can go back out with their Mexican flags and wave them around our streets, demanding rights or something. Here's this guy.
The FBI did the investigation of the sniper attack in Dallas, and that sniper, that domestic terrorist, was using an app similar to the ones they're talking about 2 weeks prior, all the way up to the day before the shooting, tracking and locating and following exactly where ICE agents were reported. And it's really disgusting. We can't have that, because what they are doing is not public safety. It's not about people's due process. It's about putting a target on the brave men and women that are out there every day just trying to make a difference in communities.
This is as, ICE and the FBI, they're doing major crime takedowns in places like Memphis or Milwaukee. They're finding, dozens of missing children that were, forced possibly into sex trafficking or labor trafficking, catching really dangerous illegal alien criminal drug gang members, and a lot of violence, trying to stop violence. So isn't this, it sounds, we checked, it's against federal law and it's against the privacy constitutional rights of ICE agents to put up that website, no?
Yes, yeah. And Secretary Noem and Attorney General Bondi are dedicated to make sure that they protect the men and women of ICE and all federal law enforcement, and they're going to look at every legal aspect to this. But really, what this app is doing, just to your point, just what those crimes you just listed, they are shielding criminal aliens from being arrested and removed from our country. And that isn't what anybody wants. Do you want a child rapist? Do you want a fentanyl dealer? Do you want one of these new foreign designated terrorist cartel members in your neighborhood dealing poison like fentanyl? I don't understand why any elected official would want to do this.
Well, they do it because it is their constituency. They've got a bunch of people who, actually may be citizens now, who have illegal alien parents because of our stupid birthright citizenship policies. And if you fast forward 10, 15 years, we're going to have a lot more anchor babies who are all born with birthright citizenship to illegal alien parents who are in love with their parents, rightfully so, and become constituents by proxy and vote accordingly as U.S. citizens. So this is part of a multi-pronged effort to reclaim our country. We have to end birthright citizenship. We have to deport the illegal aliens. We have to have a good census so we know how many people are actually here and redistribute those votes accordingly. And we need proper apportionment, so we have good House of Representatives that reflect the population of American citizens. Then we'll have our country back, and we'll stop having sanctuary cities that indulge criminal illegal aliens and illegal aliens in general, so that they get more federal funds, more federal votes, more electoral votes, and rip off the rest of us. We're sick of it. Supreme Court now getting a filing from 25 states. Hopefully that is helpful in their decision making, with oral arguments and decisions coming soon. We're going to keep our eye on this one, my friends. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, my beautiful friends, what a great stream it has been today. If you're just joining us, quick recap. Great segment to kick the show off on Arctic Frost, the collusion between Jack Smith, Liz Cheney, and Benny Thompson. We also then went through the new reports from the judiciary committees in the Senate and the House and saw exactly how corrupt FBI agents like Walter Giardina and Tim Tebow investigated basically every single Republican who was playing at a high level all across America. This is 1,730 pages of subpoenas and materials that came out from illegal Jack Smith, not even a real boy, against everybody. And Ted Cruz is out calling for the impeachment of Judge Boasberg. And we're happy to see that. Then we talked about Charlie Kirk and this story that is going around saying the FBI was covering up a probe of something. New York Times had the story. Fox News refuted the story and said, actually, it's all being exaggerated. There's no cover-up. Investigation's just fine. We then went through some of the most recent documents on the case, explaining that, yep, the prosecutors are going to be asking to appear telephonically, and the prosecutors are going to be asking to limit media coverage, both of which I think are just ridiculous. This is a national case. You should show up to court to do your job. But They don't want to do that over there in Utah for whatever reason. We'll see what the judge says. Further briefing will come down the line. We've got maniac lefties like this who remind me of almost that like satanic goat, Baphomet, something like that. Yeah. Anyways, she was out there talking about more death and APAC for whatever reason. Turning Point has an event tonight with JD Vance. Should be a good one. We also then saw the Supreme Court getting an amicus brief from 25 states saying birthright citizenship is being improperly interpreted and ICE agents are under attack and onslaught by Mexican flag waving students who have invaded our country, demanding education and the non-enforcement of federal law. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. And let's see what you have to say about all this. Happy Wednesday. I hope your week is unfolding beautifully. You're accomplishing all the things you set your mind to. Yeah, it's going to be a beautiful day. We're planning on joining Brianna Mello tomorrow morning over on InfoWars at, I think, 11:30 Eastern time. So if you want to join us, that's a little housekeeping note. So we'll have a members-only stream after that, but it might be delayed tomorrow morning. Let's see what else we've got. Yeah, that's a spicy comment from FD Man, as usual, as we'd expect. It's Wednesday, my friends. What's up, Wednesday? There's a new show. I haven't seen it. It's not exactly my genre, but thank you for that. It's Wednesday. Riding with Reno. What's up, Riding with Reno? Thank you for becoming a supporter. We'll see you in the after party coming up soon in just a few minutes. YouTube membos, you don't even have to click a new stream now. It just happens automatically. It's nice. Susanna. Lawsuit filed to ensure fundamental civil rights against Tish. Wow, that's from realamerica.vote. Tish is getting sued. Nice. From realamerica.vote. Thank you for that. From Susanna. Thanks for the heads up on it. Sounds like a fun lawsuit. We love Tish lawsuits. Bucky's is Rome says, it's wild how the Democrat Party and their talking points are literally the communist planks. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Marx had a whole list of them. Yeah, a set of proposed measures: abolition of property, heavy progressive tax, abolition of all rights of inheritance, confiscation of the property of all immigrants and rebels, centralization of credit in the hands of the state, centralization of the means of communication and transport, and the list goes on. Now, you can compare and contrast that. There's this great book called The Naked Communist by W. Cleon Skousen. And in that, I'm pretty sure it's that book, I'm pretty sure it's in that book. But he goes back through, I think it's the 1960s Democrat playbook or their campaign pledge. So you can compare even the modern Democratic Party to the old Democratic Party, like in the 1960s, not even close. The Democratic Party of the 1960s was like, dang, that's a pretty nice platform. Pretty good. Not anymore. They sound like communists because they are. Doan, what's up? Zach De Gregorio at Wolves in Finance is pushing that Tyler Robinson is an agency fall guy along the lines of crooks and using JFK parallels for context. Yeah, there's a lot of that, going on. There's a lot of speculation going on. We try not to indulge in too much of that, but we do, for the reason that we want to see the evidence in the filings. And in the filings, we'll start to see if there's some missing gaps that I think will become a little less speculative if they exist, which is why we're kind of holding fire on that until we see stuff. But today we wanted to talk about the cash story because it's getting a lot of attention on X. They're denying it. So you can, come to your own conclusions on that one. But I have more issues with the prosecution. Why are they fighting to limit the media and not appear in person and have him appear virtually for all these things? What is that? I don't know. Thank you, Doan. And shout out to our friend Wolves and Finance. And by the way, I appreciate the conversation about it. I know for a lot of people, it's very off-putting to kind of Charlie, we watched Charlie Kirk. We all got PTSD from that. And to speculate about whether we're being told the truth and stuff like that is very distasteful. I completely get that. But I also do not want to fall into the camp here where it's just, lone gunman shooter, everything's overdone, everything, evidence is great, Kash Patel's amazing, everything's perfect, and we're just going to put a nice bow on it and then go out for ice cream or something. It's like, that's not going to happen either. So we're going to question the prosecution. We're going to question the evidence. We're going to make sure that this is investigated, properly we need tension on these things. Okay. Anytime a government doesn't have tension on them or people like breathing down their necks, they just go, it's the path of least resistance. And that often means you don't get the full picture. And Charlie deserves much better than that. So we're going to try to, balance the line between being respectful and being thorough. And hopefully, we do a good job. We'll see. VO, thank you for that. Welcome aboard as our newest membo. We'll see you in the after party, I hope. Glad to have you. Rick D, hey, Rob, not sure if you heard, but Judge Sarah Ellis has ordered Gregory Bovino, he's over with ICE, to report to her every day at 6 to brief her on immigration enforcement operations. These judges are maniacs, man. She's not the president. She doesn't run the executive branch. Sheesh. Hey, Relantel, I watched your first 2 lives today. Hilarious, like ever. It was March 2020, wasn't it? Crazy, man. Did you ever think watching The Watchers would become what it is today? Great work as usual. No. I mean, honestly, no. No, I didn't think that at all. When I started watching The Watchers, I was just frustrated as hell, a little bit freaked out. It was like right in the middle of 2020. I thought we were going to lose our whole law firm. I was just honestly just like mad. I kept watching these governor's orders come down and say everything's locked down and you're all 2 weeks. I was just mad, really. So there wasn't a lot of forethought. I was just frustrated and I wanted to, I thought, man, the only thing we can do is speak out about this. Is all I know how to do. And we started talking about it and lo and behold, people were interested in it. Then Kyle Rittenhouse happened. Then Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. Then we had the election. And here we are, man. And I feel extremely blessed and very fortunate. And I'm grateful for you and this entire journey. Because I think we're doing good work here. I hope we are. I hope, I feel like I'm becoming a better person. And I hope, hope some of that's translating as well. So Real Antel, thanks for going back in the memory tank and digging those out. I'm sure those are fun. I haven't watched them since we went live. So thanks for that, Real Antel. Was I a little chunkier back then too? Some of that. No, I think that was after. Yeah, that was after I stopped drinking. So I was like no longer drinking. So hopefully he's losing some weight back then. But yeah, anyways. Hey, Beth, thank you for that, Real Intel. Beth is here. 19 months as a member, 2 babies and then some. Says Trump team with Gatorade for special Arctic Frost flavor. Yeah, Arctic Frost. Isn't that like a Mountain Dew flavor or something? I think it was pretty good. It's like limited edition Mountain Dew or whatever. Put Trump on there. It would be orange. Would it be the orange flavor? Hilarious. John McGarvey, 39 months as a membo. Says, hey, I just wanted to shout out our newest Fed. Moderator. Moderator, not a Fed at all. Muffin Rando. Welcome aboard, Muffin. Muffin has been amazing. Muffin, thank you so much for being here and for agreeing to help out on the chat and for being our newest mod extraordinaire. Muffin's amazing. Always so pleasant and welcoming, and we're grateful for you. Thank you. And definitely not a Fed. I swear. All right, so we got a little warning on this next comment. So let's see what we got over here. Yeah, okay. So FD Man says the Cheney family are bad people. And Thompson, Benny, is also not a good person. And Jack's Indian name is P sitting down boy. They destroyed exculpatory evidence and gave P sitting down boy all the fruits of the poisonous tree. Spicy comment. Thank you, FD Man, for that one. We sanitized it a little bit for the stream. Chad Brummett, what's up? 15 months as a membo, coming up on 2 full babies, Chad. I'm excited. I hope you are too. Thanks for being a membo for so long and supporting us. You're awesome. And Sean of Thyme, 6 months as a membo, 2/3 of the way to a baby. Says Jeb is screwed now. Jeb is Judge Boasberg. And it says impeach the SOB, man. So in that full Senate briefing today from the Judiciary Committee, I think it was Eric Schmidt who also came out and was hinting, and Lindsey Graham, they were all hinting the House should open up investigations at least and then impeach him. Hopefully that pressure continues. 200-watt studio. Only reason they tapped the phones of senators was to find blackmail material paid over those phones. The committee could then get them to say anything. It's a great point. if they're colluding with each other, Jack gets something, passes it off to Liz. Liz then sends a letter seeking that information. Then we have this conflict. Yeah, it was scandalous, man. They really, really need to not let this go. Hopefully they don't. Chad Brummett, what's up? Is it not possible for SCOTUS to do something with these rogue judges? I know the remedy should be impeachment, but the House seems to not have the stomach for the job. The courts should clean the courts. Yeah, they could. I mean, I think they could. But the problem with that, like if the Supreme Court comes back down and starts acing all these judges, like you're sanctioned, you're disciplined, you're removed, whatever, then they're going to look like a politicized branch of government. And they can't allow that to happen. And they all know that. Like all these Supreme Court justices know that their only real power is the public's perception that they're legitimate. And if the public doesn't think they're legitimate in whatever way, shape, or form, however that happens, they lose their power. And then you get presidents that just say, well, allegedly that, I think it was Johnson who said, well, Jackson, they made their ruling. Let them enforce it. What are their enforcement powers? They've got no other power. So it's about credibility. And the Supreme Court has been working on that credibility for our entire life cycle of our country. Originally, the Supreme Court was basically an afterthought. They had like a building at the New York Stock Exchange. They had they didn't even have a building until like the 1900s. They were working in a closet in Congress. So they worked really hard to establish this legitimacy and this credibility. And if they start 6 Republican judges come out and start acing Boasberg and Zenas and all of them, then it's going to undermine their own power. So that's why they don't do it. And you might disagree with that. We've seen some of the nudging. And to be honest, the judges should be better than this. But Gorsuch, he wrote a concurring opinion and he said, we've now said 3 times and you're still doing it. So there is clear frustration that is being felt on the Supreme Court, but what are they going to do? Because whatever they do, it's like, cutting off your nose to spite your face, as they say. So that's really the reason. It is frustrating, but Congress should just do something about it. Doggone it, what's up? I was watching Blackburn's face during Ted's speech. Don't mess with a mad woman. Marcia is not happy. She was also out on the Senate floor and, very upset about this. They're mad, and their phone records are mad. Even John Cornyn came out. He's like, if they can spy on me, they can spy on you. We're like, thanks, John. Thanks for telling us what's been obvious for a couple decades now. Appreciate that. Goofy for Jesus. Didn't the J6 committee refuse docs for J6 defendants? Grr. Yeah, well, a lot of it, the courts also found were not relevant. They said, well, you only need the FBI materials, like the Proud Boys, for example. They said, but we want to introduce all this evidence from Homeland Security investigations who were everywhere on the scene. Judge said, no, it's not relevant because only the FBI is prosecuting you. So it was kept out in a number of different ways. Goofy for Jesus, thank you for being here for 22 months. You rock. Siggy USA, maybe they will finally do something infuriating. I agree with you, Siggy USA. I mean, I don't know that we've ever seen a group of senators on our side this animated and upset about anything. So the spying on their cell phones thing and not being told about it, they're mad. And that's good. It's good for us because if it just happens to us or if it just happens to Harrison Floyd or some Trump campaign advisors, they don't give a crap. But if it happens to them, then they'll join the party. And that's good news. What's up? FD man. Judge Boasberg is in deep. Trump and went after congressional members. Jail that fool for treason. From FD man. Yeah, and a full audit of all of his approved subpoenas and other items would be very welcomed. Hey, King of Biltong. What's up, King of Biltong? Says premium biltong from Biltong USA now available. Get your biltong. High protein, keto friendly, no additives. US sourced beef, authentic South African flavor. Get some now. Go to biltongusa.com. And if you use code Robert at checkout, you'll save 10% off. And you'll love it. FD man. Hey, Jennifer Welch is a drunk reality TV 1%er with the face of a possum. I thought she looked like that devilish Baphomet character. Bad cosmetic, Botox, and filler procedures to make her look like a demon. Doggone it. Gotta wonder what Cash is afraid of. Should follow up on everything. It doesn't change Tyler as the shooter. Yeah, if there's foreign money, if there's, Antifa goons in the crowd. Does it take away from the fact that he's got evidence that makes him the shooter and an admission and apparently DNA evidence on the screwdriver or whatever? Yeah. FD man. She seems like a real something. Deluxe Knight says, the saddest part about her talking about AIPAC money is the fact that Charlie Kirk was voicing some opposition to the government of Israel days before he was taken from us. My family to this day still go out. My prayers to this day still go out to his family and the many people that now say, we are Charlie Kirk. God bless you and everyone here in the Watching the Watchers family. I love you all. Yeah, it just felt like a non sequitur to me. It's like we're coming after you because Charlie had Jewish donors that there was a conflict over. I mean, I thought he just lost like a $2 million donor. Anyways, it was a weird non sequitur. And I don't know anything that she could have said after that. AIPAC money or whatever. Like insert anything that would justify the death of people. And she's laughing at it. So they're just sick freaks. Doggone it. Did you hear about the judge that urinated in public in AZ? She had to step down. Uh-oh. No, I did not hear that. That's a pretty funny one. Man, I represented a lot of urinating in public cases. In Old Town Scottsdale, it's like they kick out, if you ever go to a bar there, be careful. They kick everybody out like instantly at 2:00 in the morning, right? And there's no bathrooms anywhere. Everything's closed. And so we got like these canals and we've got all these side streets and stuff. And the Scottsdale cops on their bikes just do laps and just do loops. So many people. And like nice people. Like you get a lot of women, actually. A lot of women urinating in public. Oh, man, I just went behind the dumpster. I just pulled my skirt up and plopped down and a cop just popped out of the bushes. You're like, oh, man. Anyways, you get a lot of those resolved. If it's her first time, usually get a diversion deal on those. But it wasn't that way for a while. They wanted convictions on those because Scottsdale sometimes sucks. But anyways, hey, his name is Robert Paulson. What are the steps to impeach this judge? It's a good. I mean, the House initiates it, so it would go over to the House of Representatives. Procedurally, I think they open up an impeachment inquiry. I'm trying to think back to how they did it against Trump, but like there's an inquiry, then they create a committee, then they form their investigative body, then they come out and make their decision and draft their articles of impeachment, and then file those, and it moves forward from there. So then the House would vote to impeach, then it would go over to the Senate, and they're not going to get removed. 2/3 to remove somebody, they're not going to get removed, but at least they go through the process. And they have that impeachment on their record in perpetuity. Muffin Rando says, we will be remember the 1st of November. Dems are crazy. Let's keep shutdown going. V for Vendetta movie quote. Yeah. Remember the 1st of November, the EBT cancellation and shock. Something like that, right? Good to see you, Muffin Rando. That wrench looks nice on you, my friend. Good to see you. Not a Fed. Hey, welcome. Not a Fed. Muffin Rando. Definitely not a Fed. Multipass. Lilu Dallas Multipass is here. Hey, stellar stream. Well, thank you, Lilu. Thank you for the stellar dono. Quick question, and I apologize if it's been asked before, but could they pass a law to make it illegal to pay for protesters? My initial thought is, how do you enforce that? Or I don't think so. I don't think that you could. I think that money is, speech in the Supreme Court case, which name is escaping me right now. Citizens United, right? Remember that case? So money is speech. I think you can pay people to do things. So like you have a freedom of association that we generally recognize, courtesy of the First Amendment. So I think you'd probably run into some constitutional problems on that. Now, again, like maybe paying illegals to protest, there's already employment law. So like if they're paying illegal aliens, you can say you can't hire illegal aliens. They have no right to work in our country, and criminalize that. But otherwise, if they're not committing any crimes, then I'm not sure that you could criminalize that. it would implicate too many constitutional protections, free association, free speech, Citizens United. I think that would make that difficult. But it's an interesting idea. Yeah, bag of worms, First Amendment. Yeah. I think it implicates a lot of things. Now, if you had another reason, like the person's an illegal alien or something like that, then you might be able to do something. Lilu, so how many slapdowns do you think the Supreme Court has to do before it will finally start penalizing these lower level judges? Or is that just pie in the sky thinking? Well, I think, yeah, I don't think that they're going to, I don't think that they're going to penalize them. I think the judges will govern it through their case filings, essentially. So we won't see any direct action from SCOTUS to Boasberg, for example. Like they won't sanction him or something. I doubt that. I doubt we see that. Maybe we do, but I doubt it. Instead, they'll just, kind of hit them back with their decisions, because that is more legitimate than it feels more legitimate. It's like, well, we just go through the normal course of appeals. And that kind of happened with Boasberg. It worked its way up, worked its way back down, working its way back up and back down. And the Supreme Court ultimately has the final say. So like they're in a position of power. It is frustrating to have all these lower level judges do what they're doing. But you might see the Supreme Court just come out and issue a blanket ruling across the board. You know what? Preliminary injunctions are now banned for the president. You're limited, that are national. They're limited to these locations, and you don't get to, make the ICE director come in and report to you. And you don't get to cancel the federal government, the executive branch, firing people during a shutdown. Like they'll come back and they'll correct it on each of those little issues. But the likelihood that they come after themselves is, I think, low. And historically, I think that's been the case. And Congress should do it, not the Supreme Court. Jay Marino, Judge Boasberg, a.k.a. Mr. Turn the Planes Around Now, he signed an order preventing AT&T from notifying Ted Cruz about the subpoena. Probable cause to believe destruction of evidence, witness tampering, etc. This is Occam's razor. Conspiracy to overthrow the duly elected president, and Watergate was Bush League compared to this. I completely agree. Like Ted Cruz, that was a burner. But it's not Watergate. I mean, it's like, and worse than Watergate is always said. This is like, a Stalinistic purge under the guise of the justice system. It was sick. Doan, people think biz as usual at justice, but the moles and the traitors are still on the payroll. They need to be kept guessing and drawn out for exposure. I see what you're saying. So, keep your enemies closer a little bit, like put them on a new assignment while you're investigating their whole lives. Yeah. Jay Marino, none of this aiding and abetting riots and protests are definitely not allowed for tax-exempt organizations. Just pull their exemption. That's simple. Yeah, so there you go. So there's another kind of a collateral attack, right? Like, you're all getting paid by 501c3s. You're not supposed to engage in political activity, for example. You're paying them to go engage in political activity or whatever, whatever like provision it is. Just pull their exemption. Yeah. So yeah, tax filings or something. Like, what do I think there are other collateral attacks on paid protesters, but criminalizing or prohibiting protesting, I think you're going to run into some pretty serious First Amendment speed bumps on there. But it's a great question and a great hypothetical to flesh out. Love kind of, how does that work? How do you think about it? And if you could do that, we probably already would have at some point, so it's probably unlikely that we're going to see that, but great question nonetheless. And my friends, thank you so much for sending those in. Thank you for supporting our work here with your love and your contributions. We're grateful for you. Let's say what's up to our friends on X quickly. And then it's after party time, baby. Tiffany says, yeah, I'll say Jack Smith is busted. So is that corrupt slime ball under Judge Boasberg busted? Also hope they investigate every single judge that stepped on the rights of the J6 defendants. And it's the same pattern, right? If they're going to abuse their power to go after a senator and spy on their cell phones without even telling them, what do you think they did to the J6ers? They stood no chance, man. No chance. Neuro D, thank you for that. Hey, thanks for checking out Rumble, my friends. And off topic, is a fundraiser for legal fees profiting off a crime? No, I don't think so. Not if the fundraiser is, unless the fundraiser is criminal, maybe. Like if the fundraiser itself is criminal, like you're fundraising for like your cancer and you don't have cancer, that's a fraudulent enterprise, essentially. That might be illegal. Floyd was Ashley Merchant's client in Georgia that led to Big Fanny and her lover boy being exposed. Yeah, remember Floyd? That dude was great, man. That was a fun read. Goes up to these feds who didn't identify themselves. He doesn't know who they are. They look like thugs. Poking him in the chest. Get out of my building. And Walter's like, holding his gun. Get out of here, you baby. Floyd, what's up? Good to see you, retired Dave. Miss Weedy, are we not allowed to see Robinson because maybe he's transitioning? Good question. I don't know. Yeah, we want to see him. To see if he turned into Tylerina. Maybe the judge doesn't want to spoil the big surprise of Miss Taylor Robinson coming out. Just kidding. But, the times we live in. Hey, there's Harrison Floyd. Yeah, that's who we thought it was, man. Shout out to Harrison Floyd. We appreciate his leadership on this one. And what's going on? Mr. Turd's corny cousin. What's up, Mr. Turd's corny cousin? I watch you on Rumble at night to be up on the courts. I listened to the story about how Jack came to be the special prosecutor to, quote, get Trump, and it sounded to me like Jack was an addict. Why go home with a broken leg to heal? That's BS. He went to detox and 30 days in rehab. Well, that's an interesting comment. Yeah, so it was like maybe a Hunter Biden colleague. Hunter's like, I have the best attorney. I sell him crack all the time. I don't know. Interesting theory there, Mr. Turd. We appreciate that. All right, my friends, it's been a great stream. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks for hitting the like button on your way out if you're not joining us in the after party. Thanks for subscribing if you haven't already done that, and for inviting everybody you've ever met in your entire life to come join us. We got a couple of comments that just came in. Jay Marino, hey, says, where was the press? Many question marks. Good question, Jay Marino. Not sure what story that is, but it's a good question. Yeah, Sharpie guy. Hey, Rob, from the Membo stream this morning, never ever buy an appliance like a vacuum or a microwave for any special occasion. Anything from your mother-in-law's birthday all the way through your 1 week anniversary. You will be the operator going forward for years. Speaking from experience, I vacuumed for almost 20 years, and I was the only person in our home with an electric toothbrusher. LOL. Sounds like marriage advice, which I appreciate. Don't buy vacuums or microwaves for any special occasion. That makes sense. Like here, honey, happy anniversary. Here's a new cordless drill for you that I would like to now use. Beautiful marriage. This morning we were also talking about, I think Mom of Many said that she got her husband an amazing grill for their anniversary. And he said, this gift is so good that it's also from me to you. What a dude. I love that dude. Probably would be fun to hang out with him. Shout out. All right, my friends, beautiful stream. Thank you for all the love. Thanks for being here and joining us on this Wednesday. We're coming back tomorrow to get into it again. Members only stream in the morning. Might be a little bit delayed tomorrow morning because we're planning on hanging out with InfoWars for a little bit over on Brianna Mello's show. So make sure you're over there following her. And if you want to join us live, it should be a fun conversation. I think we'll talk a lot about this Arctic frost stuff tomorrow. So a little bit of a recap. Then we'll have a member stream. Then we'll come back and do it all again tomorrow. It's going to be Thursday. I cannot wait to see you when we're back. But before we wrap it, want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths, our incredible mods. We've got Donut Mind, me, John, now Muffin Rando joining us. We've got Carrie Bean, Carrie B, G-Gum, Elliot, Just Rhonda, of course, Neuro D, Janek, and Dog Digger, all modding the fort down for us. Keeping things nice and orderly around here. But my friends, that's going to be it for us on the day. It's after party time. We're going to debrief and see what else you have to say about this. Come join us as a membo on YouTube or on Locals. Just hang tight. Everything will kick over, and we'll see you in just a little bit. But tonight, I hope you have an amazing rest and you get refreshed and restored, and come back tomorrow because we'll be back here. And in order to do that appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
watching my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. We brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we exposed corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers, truth on our side. Watching the watchers, we won't be denied. Watching the watchers, eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see through